Raise Sensation. I'm your host, Dan, and today's episode will be about the book Mondo Macabro, which I just looked at the date of publishing and I forgot it already. Was put out in 1997. So, in 1997, some early adopters might have been on the internet, but I certainly wasn't. I really didn't get regular access to the internet until, I don't know. It's pretty late, later than this. So, books like this, which is Mondo Macabro, Weird and Wonderful Cinema Around the World by Pete Toombs. These were my bread and butter. Delicious necessities of life. This is a great overview. Now, every time I'm doing one of these old books, part of me is always saying, like, well, is anybody going to be interested anymore because of the internet? To my way of thinking, one thing is I get nostalgic for these books. Some of these I haven't looked at in a while because they've been in storage so long. But the other thing is that some of the writers for these books are really good, and they do good overviews. Sometimes the internet can be overwhelming with, they don't whittle it down. It's more like, let's just provide as much as we can, and you guys can sort it out. Or the people who are writing about it might not do it, might not be very entertaining. Pete Toombs was a very good writer, and there was this book. He also had a follow-up book, Immoral Tales, which unfortunately is still in storage right now, and hopefully I can break that out and show that to you too. But I'm going to give a quick spin through here. So it starts off with Crazy Kung Fu, which is about, really it's Kung Fu comedies, of which there were a fair amount, or just things that were a little off kilter, like some of the weirder Bruce Lee rip-off movies. After he passed, there was a ton of rip-off stuff, and it covers all these kind of offbeat Kung Fu movies. And it does an okay job. Because I was living in DC and I was going to see Hong Kong movies all the time in the theater. I was a little bit past beyond needing this, but it's well written, and this is about the Category 3 type of films from Hong Kong. And so, a little salaciousness here. The fabulous Amy Yip. This is all, like I said, it was nothing new to me, but it's a great little primer on some things to check out. There are entire books about the Hong Kong things that cover these in much more detail. But it was a nice place to start, and it's still pretty interesting. And this is part 3. This is the horror movies, and those have a special place for me. I love the Asian horror films. Black Magic 2. Human Skin Lanterns is it's got that skull face there, makes it look a little Evil Deadish, but it's really about a serial killer. The Witch with Flying Head. These are some really good. Killer Snakes and Calamity of Snakes are both. I've just seen this again recently. This I haven't seen for a while, but I think they both have real snakes being killed in them. So I love snakes. This movie, I wish I didn't feel such guilt about it. I know these snakes have been dead now for decades, And, Hong Kong no longer harms animals during their filming, but, it's hard to watch this and not feel a little bit. Now, the main snake, the big fight at the end, there's a lot of rubber snakes killed during the course of the film, too. And, of course, the giant snake that appears several times is a big puppet. So, but some great stuff covered here. We Are Going to Eat You, Choi Hark, who kind of, everyone thought he was going to become a darling of Hollywood because he was such an interesting director and stuff. This is one of his early films. It's a comedy. It's a cannibal comedy. We're Going to Eat You, not zombies. Of course, Sammo Hung and the Hopping Vampire films. This one's Crazy Safari, where the guy who was the African fellow who starred in The Gods Must Be Crazy, which was a huge hit in Asia. So they said, oh, what if we have him and we'll have him meet up with Mr. Vampire? Because those films were popular at the time, and they have a hopping kung fu, the hopping vampire, and the ghost of Bruce Lee possesses the African fellow, and so he can fight too. Mr. Vampire is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love it. If you've never seen Mr. Vampire, definitely check it out. There's a really good British, that's a really problematic release. It either has terrible English dubbing or instead of real subtitles, it has dub titles, where they just copied the English dub version. There is a copy now out from the UK that has great subtitles. And, if you're multi-region, you should definitely check that out. Like I said, it's one of my favorite. But even the worst version of this is worth seeing. It's funny. There's lovely parts of it. It's just a fun movie. So yeah, he really gives a lot of space to the Chinese horror films. And here's the films that were made in the Philippines, and it covers the films that people like Roger Corman had made there and John Ashley, but it also covers films made by Filipino filmmakers for the American markets. I love the Blood Island trilogy, as they call it, a series of 3 monster films, each one more ridiculous than the next. There's some nudity in these things, goofy monsters. That's a gory-looking vampire bite with hamburger meat there. Women in horrible prisons films. It covers a lot of great stuff. Again, very good overview of these films. Man, I didn't want this video to be too long. Mystics from Bali. So there you go. Here's films from Indonesia. Let's go a little quicker. Here is several chapters about films from India, the bare facts about Bollywood. It covers a lot of ground. It's very interesting. It was an eye-opener for me at the time. I had read a little bit in some other fanzines about individual movies, but I really hadn't known this overview. Here's some nice color pages covering the different chapters. So it's color pictures from all the different, Mexican films, all the different stuff, the Japanese stuff. But one thing I will say about this, as eye-opening as this was to me and as interesting, I'll point out that Tim Paxton, who's been making fanzines for forever. I've been reading fanzines by this guy for like forever. And he's one of the co-editors of Wings Chop. You know, this is Brian Harris, Tim Paxton, Tony Strauss. Wings Chop is a fanzine that is print on demand, so you can always get issues of this on Amazon. And I think it's available in some other places too as a print on demand, but definitely Amazon has it. They do two versions of some of these issues. There's black and white, which is much more affordable, and then there's a color version, which is, I think, almost twice as much. If you are into obscure films at all, you got to be reading this fanzine. But the reason I'm bringing it up is Tim Paxton has been writing about, he loves the country, he loves India, he loves the cinema. There is just one part, this is part 5 of a series he's been writing for Wings Chop. This one chapter about this one part of the Indian films, which is about the goddesses getting their revenge, angry goddesses, is longer than this whole chapter covering the whole range of Indian films in here. That just tells you the kind of detail he's going into, and he's written for that. He's also written about Indian films for another print-on-demand fanzine he's been doing, Monster. And this is another one. This is a very thin issue. This is issue 4. They become giant, thick monsters. Fanzines too. So he writes about him in there. He's collecting all the stuff he wrote for here, and in Wings Chop, he's collecting all the stuff he wrote about Indian horror films into a book. So if this wets your whistle, Tim Paxton's the man to see. So, oh yeah, I don't want to skip this. Movies from Turkey. Now, God, this image is that is such a striking image. This is many times when they're talking about weird foreign takes on American films, like the Turkish Star Wars or this or that. These Turkish, it's the films that are in this chapter. This is a really interesting Viking movie that they did. Well, I don't know if it's really Viking, but that's what it seems to be, a ripoff of the Viking films. But there's the Turkish Star Trek, the Turkish Exorcist, the Turkish Star Wars, as they call them. Sometimes they're not as close as you might think from the titles that they've been given. They're not really as close as you might think, but they do steal stuff from. They borrow clips and music from their inspirations. Brazil, Coffin Joe there. Again, I'm taking longer than I wanted. Argentina. Oh, this is the Mexican one that covers like Santos, but there's a lot of other things besides the luchador films that came out of Mexico. The Brainiac, of course, is very famous, and rightfully so. This is a really, really fun movie with a really bizarre monster. And then they cover the Japanese films. They're covering the pink films, which are the direct-to-video sex kind of movies. They also cover Japanese horror films. They go kind of far back for these into the early fantasy films. But anyway, so that's this book. Do you need it in your collection? I don't know, but I think it's a great focused look at it that you might not get if you just start wandering the internet. It gives you the important films to check out. But the other great thing about Mondo Macabro is that Pete Toombs and another fellow have started a video label, Mondo Macabro. So they don't just write about these films, they've been releasing them. And they have some absolutely fantastic releases they've done. Like, I recommend, like, go to their website, look at some of these things. They've released Who Can Kill a Child, Barry Prima, his movie The Warrior, The Mystics in Bali, which is covered in here. They've released the Wang Wang films, Lady Terminator, which is just a bizarre Terminator ripoff, half Terminator ripoff. Yeah, a lot of things. They're definitely a label. I wouldn't say I loved everything on it, but they have the ratio of really terrific stuff that I've enjoyed. And that's just my taste. The amount of stuff that I have really enjoyed from this label is great. They have a little box set coming out of Bollywood horror films, and it's going to have a booklet on the films written by Tim Paxton. Yeah. So anyway, that's all for now. Let me know what you think. Bye-bye.